One quick note on next week, we will be taking the week off as we will be at Power Monkey Camp 18 out in the woods of Tennessee. We know some of our listeners will be with us in person out in Tennessee. We'll be excited to see those campers. Some of you will not be able to be with us. We'll miss you, but you can follow along on our social, powermonkeycamp.com, for dates for our spring event. See you in 2 weeks. This episode is sponsored by Assault Fitness. Assault has been a part of Power Monkey Camp for a long time. We've incorporated the runners, bikes, and rowers in our endurance sessions, as well as the competitions that we have at camp and our nightly workouts. See what all the hype is about and take advantage of their machine markdown madness. Save big on their elite runners and their pro bikes now. Check out the full lineup of machines at assaultfitness.com. Welcome to the Power Monkey Podcast, where we chat with the best in the world about what they do. I'm your host, Dave Durante, with my co-host, Mike Service, and we have two special guests on with us this week. We have Jeffrey Adler, one of the top individual competitors in the CrossFit setting, having been to the games many, many times as an individual athlete, and having finished 5th at the 2022 CrossFit Games that finished just a couple of months ago in Madison. Along with Jeff, we have his coach/girlfriend, Caroline Lambray. We've actually known Caroline for a number of years. She was a camper at Power Monkey Camp 2 many, many years ago, and we've been able to follow her incredible career up to the point now where she is one of the top coaches in the community as well. We talk about the relationship coach-athlete, what it's like in the gym, but also the fact that they have a unique situation going, that they have a relationship outside of the gym, how that dynamic works, as well as what the programming looked like for the 2022 CrossFit Games, all the new things that Boz threw at them, what they thought as a coach, as an athlete, being exposed to so many new things that they hadn't been before, as well as one other thing that we're excited to announce. Both Caroline and Jeff are coming back to Power Monkey Camp 18 in just a few short weeks. They're coming back as guests again. Caroline for her second time, Jeff for his first time. We're going to be able to have them in person with us out in Tennessee. We're really excited about that. We love talking with both of them. Both Mike and I got a lot out of this podcast, and we hope you guys do. Enjoy. All right. Well, hello to both Jeffrey and Caroline. How are you guys doing today? Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, good, you?
Excellent. Excellent. Where are you guys calling in from?
Home, Montreal.
You guys are in Montreal. So is that where you both grew up and kind of home base?
Pretty much.
I grew up in Montreal. He grew up in the boonies.
The boonies, more north.
East. More east.
Oh, okay.
More east. Right. Does it? How much further? So, northeast Canada is very much middle of nowhere. Is that like Prince Edward Island and
No.
Newfoundland? Is that area?
No, still in Quebec.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Further in the province.
All right. So, you guys speak more French at home or English?
French.
French. All right. Excellent. Mike was commenting on, is CrossFit Wonderland your gym?
Yeah.
Excellent. Mike was wondering how you pronounce it. Being from Germany now, is it Wonderland or do you say Wunderland?
No, we say Wonderland.
Wonderland.
See that, Mike?
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
So,
well, I just for one French connection, not French Canadian, but French connection. We have a waitress at a restaurant next to us. So I'm temporarily living in Crete in Greece, and the waitress, her mother is French, and we didn't know for the last year and a half. And then one day she was just talking French the whole entire time to one of the tables next to us, and my wife and I were just staring at her like, what is happening?
you picked it up over the weekend.
Yeah. So. Anyways,
Yeah, for the
I like to
listener,
start some random comments.
For you guys and for the listeners out there, we've mentioned a few times, but Mike is not just passing through Crete. He's been living there on and off for 2+ years now.
Yeah, almost 3 years.
Yeah, so Mike is Greek almost through and through now. You are full on Cretan now.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
So, Caroline, I want to start with you because we go way back in terms of first time that we met. And we're excited to see you guys both again in a couple of weeks at next Power Monkey Camp, which is coming up really quickly here. But listeners out there, Caroline, you were a camper at Power Monkey Camp 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, 2.
2. Unbelievable. I mean, to nobody, still not too many people know about Power Monkey Camp now, but back then it was, to find out about it and to be able to partake. Do you have any memories about camp back almost 10 years ago now, something that kind of stands out from your experience?
Oh yeah, it's still one of the best like CrossFit experiences I've had. And it was so funny when I came back. It's like this one time at CrossFit Camp, it was, like, full of stories.
Yes.
It was so much fun to like be in the groups and get to know everybody and doing the bunk beds and like the fire camp at night and just like everything is just extra. Like it was so much fun. Yeah,
I love it. And I can't wait for you guys to come back, because I think over the last 8 years or whatever it's been, it's changed quite a bit. And I'm excited to see your take on it. And we actually have a couple of staff members now that were also part of Camp 2 that you'll see there that are on our staff side of things now. So you'll probably run into some familiar faces. But coaching side of things, you've been involved with CrossFit Games and the participation in the higher end events for a long time in a variety of different roles. But the coaching side of things, that's something that's super interesting, because there are not too many females coaching high level CrossFit athletes in the space. I'd say that probably the most prominent is Michelle, not too far away from you guys. Also probably same city too, which is kind of strange. But how did you get into coaching from just what you had been doing in the CrossFit world and knowing that, hey, I want to move on to coach at a high level. This is where I want to be spending my time.
I don't think it was something that I was striving for from the get-go. So when I, tumbled into CrossFit and just like loved the methodology and then started coaching in the box, that's what I wanted to do, is just be a coach. So to me, who I coach isn't really important. Level or just like goals and stuff. To me, the role of coaching is to help somebody develop into the individual and the athlete that they want to be. And that's basically where it started. When I met Jeff and I saw the potential, and other athletes even before I met Jeff had reached out. Like back then it was regionals, like people wanted to make it to regionals. That was kind of the first stepping stone onto the games. And I think people just kind of realized quickly that I had the motivation and the will and the drive to put the time and effort into it. But then just like life happens and things would happen, and the relationship would kind of fall through, no fault of our own. It's just events that would transpire. So I've never been afraid of taking on that challenge of like, how far can I help an athlete progress? But when I met Jeff and we started working together, we met, we started dating, and then eventually it kind of, that side of things kind of happened. I've always wanted to be kind of like the best coach that I could be, learn as much as I could. And so for me, it was a chance to push myself, because in order to develop an athlete at that level, I need to excel at, a lot of things. So that was more the drive for me of the challenge of working with an athlete and help them develop to that. But it wasn't the goal or the type of clientele that I was particularly looking for. Like to me, the drive is just to help people see and realize their full potential.
Super interesting. And it's interesting the way that you guys fell into that relationship. Obviously, from what you mentioned, you were dating before you became coach athlete. But do you notice a big difference? Because there are a lot of coaches out there that just want to be the best coach possible that never transition into wanting to coach CrossFit Games level athlete. Do you notice a big difference from coaching the everyday athlete in the gym versus what you have to do to get Jeff prepared for a competition? What do you notice as a big difference between a member at Wonderland versus what you have to do with Jeff? I'm sure there are a lot, but are a couple of things that kind of stand out?
I think everybody is on a journey with their fitness, and they're going to be willing to do harder things at different times. So I think everybody kind of realizes that they need to work on their nutrition, work on their sleep, work on their mobility, work on technique, work on all these things. But for them to actually follow through, some people will be much quicker to do that, and some people are going to be slower to do that. For some people, it might take 2 years of like coming regularly to the gym before they attack their nutrition, or it might take 3 months before somebody's like, okay, I can see that, when I focus on this thing, I improve. So I'm going to put even more energy into my nutrition or put more energy into my sleep. So the only real difference I would say is maybe with him, like the buy-in wasn't as long. Like I didn't have to convince him for a year, like, okay, we need to work on nutrition. And even with the athletes at the gym, because I kind of see that like as a step-by-step process, like what's the next step that we can take. And for some people, it's they're going to be willing to work on one thing rather than another, and to see the opportunity there instead of being like, no, you need to focus on this. And like, you're basically dragging people towards working on something that they're not ready to work on. So with Jeff, it was the same thing. Like everything kind of evolved, and it was like, okay, well, now we see an opportunity. Now we're going to work on nutrition. Now you're doing 2 sessions a day. Now we're going to work on your sleep and make sure you're taking a nap every afternoon, and just kind of progress. Because, you know, also he, like when we started working, when we started having the regionals and the games as a goal, he was still working. It's like, well, a nap is just impossible at this time. Like doing 2 sessions a day is just impossible. So recognizing what is feasible and what's going to be like the biggest bang for your buck is the same, whether it's an elite athlete or somebody in your gym.
So Jeff, when you guys started working together, you were a part-time athlete. Is that correct?
Yeah.
What were you doing as your full-time job?
I was a construction worker, so I used to lay down bricks. So that was hard work, like physical work all day. And then I would finish work around 3, would get to the gym by 4, and then start working out until 7, 7:30, 8 sometimes, go to bed and do it again. That was some hard days, some pretty hard days. I wouldn't go back there.
I can imagine. And when did that end? When did you transition into being full-time athlete?
I guess it was somewhere around 2019. So I was a construction worker. The gym, we opened the gym. So I was coaching and training for about 2 years. And then at some point I let go of my job, my day job. I was still coaching a little bit, but a lot less. I think I stopped coaching really like just before the pandemic, I guess.
Yeah.
So just before.
The good thing for us was that the construction work is seasonal. So we always had kind of like the few winter months where we can like focus on training a little bit more, and that eased into like the next season where like, oh, well, maybe we're going to work 3 days a week as opposed to 5. Like you transition to part-time in the summer. And then it kind of just like everything kind of fell. It was the domino effect.
I mean, that's super interesting. That's a pretty common story. I'll let Mike jump in here. I kind of have a tendency to just ramble on because Mike is so quiet and doesn't jump in unless Mike, are you ready to jump in?
Yeah, I wanted Jeff to be really honest and tell everybody how much he misses bricklaying, because I'm sure that like meditative recovery type work really tied in well with his training.
No, I don't miss it, not even a second. I still like, I love construction. Like it's something that I like to do because it's very rewarding when you start a project and finish and it looks pretty, it's nice. That's something I really did enjoy. And let's say I would stop doing CrossFit, I would have no issue going back.
Yep.
But doing both at the same time it's a lot of work. Like recovery is almost impossible. At this point, like in the sport, it wouldn't be possible to do both and still compete at the highest level.
Do you think that your bricklaying skills have tied in well with some of the odd object movements and things that we've seen at the games in the past?
Not as much as I'd like to. No, but just like it was long hours, hard work. I think I think some of my strength maybe came from that background, I guess. I wish my grip would have adapted more. But I mean, no, it's still part of who I am and where we started, and I'm happy we did it. But yeah, as I said, I wouldn't go back.
Yeah, and really, from all kidding aside from me, I didn't know that about you, and that explains a lot more from kind of the competitive demeanor that you show. Like you look like a bricklayer when you're out there, like in the sense of it's just go, like it's
New
work
nickname.
and get the job done. Yeah, so that's that explains a lot of things, because I was a little bit curious, maybe from a mentality side and work ethic, where that all comes from. And I mean, being partners with Caroline, I think that helps, but getting a little more on that backstory from you is helpful for me. So thanks for sharing that, Jeff.
Did you grow up playing any sports specifically? Something that kind of like you wanted to be an athlete in when you were growing up?
I've always liked sports. Like I've been in sports in high school. I did play hockey, but I've never been part of teams or I never did it like in a competitive way until I started CrossFit. So yeah, I mean, I wish I've done more hockey, but that's what I have.
And you got your individual side of things now. Like, it's not super necessary to be part of a team with the way you're competing now. But I'm obviously, it's impossible to, I won't say impossible, but probably close to impossible to have a full-time job and be a viable candidate to be on the podium at the CrossFit Games these days, with how great athletes are and how much of it is a professional sport these days. And that's why, I mean, and then doing something physical on top of it, you know, not just a day job of being at a desk and then going into the gym, but actually doing something physical all day and then being expected to train at optimal levels. So I can see why that's not a thing. But on the coaching side, while you were doing that, were you coaching yourself before you had somebody like Caroline by your side, or did you have someone else that was kind of helping to facilitate strengths and weaknesses?
Not really. I mean, I would do the class programs. And then when we started adding some volume, we started by adding the .com. And then from there, like some more specific work, she started. So I've never been with anybody else in a coaching perspective, but I did do like class workouts for quite a while, at least a year and a half to 2 years.
Well, you still do class workouts.
Yeah, less and less though. And then we're still doing the .com.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, you made the games 2019 your first time. I mean, that you were still doing, you know, a lot of .com workouts and class workouts and able to make it to the games. I mean, that's unheard of with how specialized athletes are these days. With, I have my, you know, my general programming coach. I have somebody that assists on my weightlifting, some accessory work for my gymnastics. I have all these different tools. You were doing some really just general stuff and able to make it to one of the most fit people in the world. Does that bode well in your mind to say, as I dial all of these things in and I get Caroline to help me and I get my nutrition in place and I get my nap in, does that bode well for you to be able to say, you know what, I'm a really viable candidate to potentially wear the crown one day and finish on the top of the podium?
Yeah, I think so. I wish we would have started doing more specific stuff earlier, because I think I would have been at the top much earlier than what we are right now. But I mean, we learn with time, and we've been doing this for a few years now. We've been doing the games for a few years, and every year we're changing stuff to get better. And I think in the last like year and a half is where we did the most improvements on my fitness, on the programming side, on what we're doing, what we're not doing anymore. And it shows a lot. And hopefully, like with another year of that, we'll be able to crack the top 3.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not that far away, that's for sure. And now the relationship between you guys, you know, I think most people focus on Tia and her success and Shane and the fact that they're married and they have a really great relationship. I don't know too many others within the community that have the relationship that you guys do. I'm sure there's some benefits and negatives and positives that go along with being together all day, coming home, and then being in the gym. Do you view this relationship as something that is benefited by the fact that you guys are together? Or do you come home and say, okay, what was at the gym, we leave at the gym, and now that we're home, we have a relationship and we forget about what happens at the gym?
I think we can compartmentalize, but at the same time, like when we met and started like hanging out with each other, is very symbiotic from the beginning. And I think that's and that's not for everybody. That's not what everybody needs from their relationship, from their significant others. People need more time alone. You know, we'll get different things from different people, but for us, and I think that's what helped click at the beginning, is we were very comfortable spending a lot of time together. And so yeah, like we talk about CrossFit all the time, and then we don't talk about CrossFit, and we have other topics and, you know, other things, but it's not like as soon as we get home, like we have to stop talking about things, or, you know, if we're going to the gym, like, and I need him to go over programming, like we can do it at home. Like, it's not like everything is in a box. But yes, it's if I snap at him or he snaps at me because of, you know, whatever, coaching or laundry or whatever, like it's not going to transpire in another category of our life. Like it's not, we're very much just kind of like, we let it go very easily.
And I think
So
that's pretty unique. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry. I wanted, and I want to stay on the relationship side for you guys. I'm so curious, who was the initiator when you two first met? Like who was brave and went out on a limb?
Well, technically it was you.
I think it was you. You texted me first. Did I text you?
Well, I was unfindable.
Yeah.
I had no Instagram, no Facebook, nothing. So I was not on internet.
I was
at
like
all.
trying to stalk him and like try to get like some info. And I was like, nobody at the gym has like friended him. There's no picture. There's nothing. I was like, something is up. And he was like, you're like 20.
Yeah.
Like that was 7 years ago. I was like, what is going on? Took me a whole weekend, and then we saw each other on Monday.
Yeah.
So
And
yes,
it was the mystery that got you, Caroline.
Maybe. I think I did. I initiated it a little bit.
Well, you brought me coffee, and then I wanted to thank him because I was coaching another class, and I didn't get a chance to say, like, he just kind of put it there like as a little thank you. And so I wanted to thank, and the whole weekend at that point, I'm just going down a rabbit hole trying to like find him. And I couldn't. And then on Monday when we saw each other, and I think it was just one little gesture after the other. And I think we just kind of had an open mind, and it just kind of like happened. And once we started texting each other, it was like morning and night and like all the time, and it was cool.
Do you think that that the way that you guys, I guess, sort of pursued each other, and how you said symbiotic, your relationship, that sounds like how the programming and coaching has evolved too, like just a little more and a little more and a little more, and not really pushing things, but going, like, evolving naturally.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was definitely, and we had a lot of logistical constraints at the beginning, like 2016, 17, 18, like just before we opened our box, like the gym that we were training at, I mean, the rower wasn't even in the CrossFit room, right? Like just things like that. Like when we opened the gym, we did it with very minimal funds and therefore equipment. Like we didn't have ski ergs until like after the 2020 games, like we didn't have ski ergs. We didn't have a bike erg. Like we've had a bike erg since the pandemic. So a year and a half. Yeah. Like there's things like that of just like, well, it would have been great. And that's where like, I think we could have gotten there sooner, could have also burnt him out. So at some point there's only so much that you do all at once. So like it was good. It had a good side and its downsides, but there's definitely opportunities when you have more resources at your disposal.
Now, are there any other athletes that are at the gym that are training at that level, or is it just you two? Because what we're seeing right now is, and I love asking this question to athletes and coaches when we have them on, about like super teams being created, right? You have the Proven, the ComTrain, now the hard work pays off, or you have Invictus, and you have these collection of athletes all pooling together to, hopefully push each other to that next level. And we've spoken to a lot of athletes that really find that to be, not for them. We talk with Vellner, and he's like, absolutely not. That's not how I would ever see myself training. I like training by myself and having Michelle just send me the programming. Do you guys have anyone else to help push Jeff, or is the relationship between you guys all you need to be able to say, I know that I can achieve what I want to within the sport? I don't need somebody by my side to be able to push me.
I don't know. I don't think I need someone to push. Because I know, like, when I do a workout, with the feeling that I have at the end, if I've done enough or not.
Mm-hmm.
But then having someone, I think I'd be too competitive.
Right.
Nasty. Because like every time I go, let's say the closest to me is Sam Cournoyer. There's Alex Caron that are pretty close. Like every time I train with them, like I'm like, we're not competitive. Like we're training, all good. And we both. I tell them, and they we look at each other and like we're just training. And then as soon as it starts, dude,
I you want to go, and you can see the first minute, the intensity is just like rising, and you're like, oh god.
Yeah.
Very good.
I don't know if I would be able to do it every single day.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be beneficial for me, but I can see that for some people it works. Every time we go into the open, the quarters, or any competition, we always have doubts, like, have I done enough in the last year? Am I fit enough? Am I ready? Or did we prep well for this competition? I think the only competition I was really well prepared
No.
and like I knew I could win it was Atlas. That was the only time in my career I was like, this weekend I'm here to win, like, and I did it. Like it was really interesting experience.
Complained about all the workouts and not saying that
Perfect.
those were good workouts for him.
Was there something different that happened in your training that got you to the point and say, I can show up? Because I remember, Mike, I don't know if you're the same, but I remember when I would go to a high level competition and have that mentality, it all came with the preparation. Like I had done everything up to that point to know that this was a chance for me to show what my training, like almost like a performance.
Yeah.
So I would have that same feeling every once in a while, but it didn't always come through. It came with my preparation and my training and the lead up to it. Was there a reason why the Atlas Games in that point let you feel that particular way?
I think so. I was lucky enough that the competition was in the city. Like I would come home between events.
Okay.
So I think that played a huge. I was such an advantage for me. I would come home, like even if I would have only 45 minutes at home, I would come home, unwind, eat some food. Like I had my own food. I didn't have to carry all my food to the venue or anything. So I think sleeping in my own bed at night. So I think that played a huge role. But yeah, the prep also, like not traveling before.
Yeah.
The traveling part is really tricky, like to be able to taper at the right time and stop the intensity at the right time so that you travel, recover from the travel, and then do the competition.
Ready.
Like it's very difficult. And that's I really tried to do the same for the games, but it's not the same. Traveling, it makes it a lot harder. So yeah, I think it helped a lot for me to be at home. And then the prep was so easy. Like 2 or 3 days before, I just slowed down training, and that's no planes, no car, no nothing. Like that was perfect.
Yeah, that's a huge advantage for sure. Now, strengths and weaknesses. Caroline, were you able to pinpoint when you came in as coach, be like, all right, you're obviously a super strong athlete, you have a lot of talent here, but XYZ is what you need to be working on. Were you able to pinpoint that right away in terms of where you thought he needed the biggest help?
It was basically everything. But I mean, like, and that's where not having the sports organized sports background, like he didn't play water polo, he didn't do swimming, he didn't do tennis, he didn't have that structure. Like I played volleyball for 4 years in high school, I did cheerleading, I did rowing in university, like that structure to your life, and just like listening to a coach and like disagreeing and knowing that you're having a bad practice or a good practice, and just like going through all the motions. So physically there was no background. He was strong, so like great, we squat, we can deadlift, we can do all of that, but he didn't have the weightlifting technique background, he didn't have the gymnastics background. He catches on very quickly, but there's still things, and like as he gained muscles and lost a little bit of flexibility or this or that, like we've always kind of been adjusting. And then I would say like the mental aspect of, I'm having a good day of training, I'm having a bad day of training, I'm having a good competition or this, bouncing back, letting go, like all these things, it takes time and practice. And again, there's nothing that you can, like, you can't rush time. He needs to kind of go through the motion. So for me, it was just basically knowing that, you know, we were elevating him as an athlete in all the areas that we needed for CrossFit, like the metabolic conditioning. He was good, but if we're aiming for the games, you need to be great. Like he was good enough at a lot of things, but then we just kind of needed to refine everything and get that to the level that, you know, he wants to perform or can perform.
Did you think this guy could be a contender for the podium when you were initially working with him, or just like, okay, ball of clay, let's see what happens? Yes
and no. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, I'm so cocky. Like, I definitely saw a bright future in him like that. No, I don't think. And it's easy today to say, oh, yes, I definitely thought that. I don't think so. I don't think, if I'm being honest, that I was like, oh, you're going to win. I definitely knew that there was a lot of potential in front of us. And looking at where he was with the level of knowledge and experience that he had, I was like, okay, there's definitely something there. doing the open, comparing scores, seeing his evolution. I think as time went on, I believed in it a little bit more and a little bit more. And for me, winning the games is like the epitome of the sport. So I'm like, well, if we're going to aim for something, I'm not aiming just to go to the games. I'm not just going to aim for podium. Like, I'm going to aim to make sure that then, the genetics, the this, the that, like, I can't control what events are going to be at the games and things like that. But I think that the goal for me was definitely to make sure that he was going to be the best athlete that he could be. And then as time went on, realizing that potentially could lead to a podium or a first place.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff, did you have a time early on, like, let's say you're still working full time and you're going to the gym, like there has to be some motivation to get you in the gym 4 hours after a work day, not just to see if you're going to be good, but because you have a bigger goal. Was there a year or a time where you really dedicated yourself to that?
Yeah, so our goal at the beginning was to make it to regionals.
And this was 2016?
17.
So 2016 was my first ever open, full open. So I did some of the workouts in 2015, but then full 5 weeks was 2016. And I think I finished 130 something in the region, and they would take the top 20 then. I was like, this is my first year. Like there's a way to go, but I think we can make it to regionals. And we missed out in 17 by like 10 spots. And then I was like, okay, like we're going to regionals next year. That's the goal. Yeah. So I think like with every year that we were closer to getting to regionals, we just trained a little bit harder to make sure that it would happen. But I've never thought of the games before 2019. Because we wanted to go to regionals. And then even the 2018 regionals, when we competed there, it was first year, enjoy it. I didn't practice any of the workouts before. I just went and, I just wanted to do the first year. And then 19 was the year we would push for a top spot at regionals. And then everything changed. I did qualify in 2019 through the open. And I think that was like the natural evolution of stuff. So we just worked harder and harder every year to make our goals happen.
I don't think he ever, because for me, when I started programming and we were like diving into this, like for him, he was just kind of looking at the next stepping stone, and into the first stepping stone was regionals. For me, I was like, okay, are we going for the games? And knowing that regionals was simply a stepping stone to something else, as opposed to just like a next step. And I always thought about it as like a 4-year Olympic cycle. Like it takes, we're not going to make it in 2 years. And I had seen, because we have like Canada East is a strong region. We have a lot of athletes. Like there's a lot of people that kind of went through the process, and you see a lot of people burn out. And I was like, I don't want you to burn out. We're not trying to get to the games in 2 years. Like we'll take 4 years to get there, and regionals will be there along the way, and we'll work on. And again, because he didn't have all this background, we need to take the time to make sure that we're loading your body properly, because you can be strong, you can still injure yourself. Like you can do too much volume, too much intensity, injuries can just happen. So for me, it was more like I kind of had a 4-year plan of knowing that, every time we would hit a milestone, we would make changes to the plan and keep pushing forward and forward.
I'm super impressed with that mentality. That's just, it seems like a route and a path that a lot of people don't really take in terms of like the small stepping stones. And you guys, the way that you went through that process is, I think, something everyone should try to emulate in terms of long-term goals rather than just that immediate, can I get this within the next 1 and 2 years? Just not really possible realistically, and staying healthy. But this year's games, congrats on the 5th place finish. Incredible. That's awesome to see. Maybe were you happy with 5th place, or were you like 2 places from podium?
5th is fine. The sucky part is I was 4th for a while and then lost the 4th. I knew that a podium, like at some point in the weekend, it was just too far off. So I was fighting for 4th. Like that was the only thing I could do. I think I would have kept it if there was no rain.
The rope climb workout?
I think so.
Yeah, alpaca.
But who knows? Like that we're not gonna go down this route of what if. Like 5th is fine. I'm happy. I can do a top 5 at the games. That's now une certitude.
Certainty.
Yeah, it's a certainty. I can do it at the games. Now we're gonna try and go for third or better. And I think it's absolutely doable. If I can have a good gymnastics, I'll be fine.
Okay,
That's
so
the Power Monkey Camp.
Yeah, okay,
I've
so-
heard of this camp in Tennessee that you guys should check out. There's a couple gymnastics guys there that would really like to work with you.
yeah, I can put you in touch with them for sure. So gymnastics side of things, would you say that gymnastics is, obviously there are a bunch of things you can't be working on, but an area that really needs focus? Or did you bring up gymnastics because of what was programmed in this particular year's games? Like Boz came in and threw so many wrenches at you guys, especially on the gymnastics side, that maybe exposed some weaknesses or some areas that you had never worked on before. Was gymnastics an emphasis prior to that, or exposed things because of that?
It's always been a priority for me, but the gymnastics that we had, like toes to bar, chest to bar, muscle ups, and now I'm good with those things.
Right.
But it's the parallettes, the walking. I just don't know how to do it.
He's too strong for his own good. Because like I'm weak, so I'm gonna be like, I'll transfer my body weight and make things easier for myself. And that's something that's very hard for him to understand. He's so strong. He'll just like get into a position and you're like, dude, chill. Like,
it's one of the hardest things I think in weightlifting within CrossFit and gymnastics within CrossFit is strength before skill. So when you come in with a level of strength that allows you to do things that exceed your level of skill, and I think probably for Dave and I both, whenever we work with people, it's trying to dig back down into some foundations just to unlock those little skill benchmarks that you need to fully utilize your strength potential.
And I want to touch on this really quickly before you get to your answer, because what you said there, Caroline, is so important for the listeners out there. It's something that we preach endlessly. This idea of watching a games competitor and then thinking that, you know, Jeff is my idol in the sport. I want to emulate the way that he performs. Say you win an event and you performed really well in that event in terms of winning it, but your efficiency was not great. You use your strength to mask your inefficiency.
Yeah. And
the athlete that's watching you, the person at home, is thinking that person won the event. They must be really good at that event. Yeah. That's not always the case. Yeah. And a lot of CrossFit Games athletes mask their inefficiencies with their incredible strength. So I really want this, what you brought up is so critical and such an important step for the listener out there saying, I want to be like a games level athlete. Ask more questions. Ask more questions rather than just watching and saying, I want to emulate. So for you, I think this is awesome. Like camp is going to be fantastic for you to be able to break some things down and be able to give you some efficiency. Like the P-bar traverses, like, was that one that you were trying to muscle as well? Like I would love to match you up against Vellner because Vellner was so efficient in that movement from his background.
I mean, that's what he said after the event. He's like, I've done this for 10 years. Like I wasn't working as hard as all of you guys. And that's how we won the workout. We didn't even have any in the warm-up area. So
that was another thing.
I've never touched that in my entire life. I don't know what it feels like. I don't know anything. The only time I did it was upside down last year at the games, handstand walking.
Right.
Which was like, I've never done it before. And I did it on the floor of the games. And I was like, oh, cool. I can do it upside down. I guess I can do it. And I have like a strong dip. Like I can dip. I can do.
We do a lot of strict, like we do a lot. And that's where it was kind of like an interesting twist, because I wouldn't say that we don't practice the basics enough. We do plenty of strict pull-ups and strict ring dips and Russian dips. And like, we'll do what needs to be done, but then it's like, okay, like the pegboard with no legs. Like, well, I don't know, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, but the pegboard is different.
But it's a building skill.
Yeah.
And it's great. Like it exposed some stuff, but I think where a lot of CrossFit athletes, him included, because I will only fight so long, and there's some things that I will force him to do. Like it's just in the programming, you have to do it. And there's other things that it's like, okay, well, I'm tired of like having to convince you to do that, but just very, very basic stuff of holds. You have to practice a handstand hold from the 2020 stage. Like
Yep.
That's where we're supposed to start with the handstand walk. And I know that, and we've practiced them. We've practiced press the handstand since 2015. Is he still good? Is he spending enough time? No, because he doesn't enjoy it. And it takes just a lot of exposure and practice. And you have to suck for a really long time.
Sure.
And because he can be very good very quickly, he doesn't enjoy sucking for a very long time. Whereas I'm like, I'm bad at everything. So at this point, I'll spend 6 months working on something.
The hand hold. So that's one thing. Like when it came up in 2020, I was like, oh well, there goes my chance to go in top 5. And I'm lucky as hell that I made it, because that event I finished basically last.
Yeah.
And so the handstand hold was interesting too, because if you looked at the guys versus the females crushed it compared to like Noah won that event with like a little over 90 seconds, and Katrin was just under 3 minutes. And so it was interesting to see the difference in terms of, maybe it was a strength to weight ratio thing, but it was also a skill thing. Like the ladies had so much more experience being inverted rather than the guys, which is interesting to see.
And I did 37 seconds. So it's horrible. And now, like, we've been practicing. And
your
now
position is better, but the whole time
my best time is like, it's still under a minute. Like I can't do a minute. So I think it's just like I suck at some of the skills in gymnastics. Maybe I'll never be good at them. And I'm fine with that. I just want to be good enough that it's not going to prevent me from a first place finish or a podium finish at the games. And I think it's just having some more exposure at those things that I just never did before. Like the traverses, like I've never done that before. I didn't know how to swing through. I tried with my knees, and then my thumbs would come in my pockets, and it's
That's great.
There's nothing good in that event. All I saw was the other guys just keep moving. I was like, oh God.
So I just want to bring up one additional thing. We love to talk about technique on this podcasting. Technique is like such a big part of what we teach, and making sure that people understand how to move well and move for longevity. And what you were talking about there, you mentioned how much time you spend on dip work and strict work, which is fantastic, building that static strength and slowing things down. What we consider to be kind of our phase 2 of our progression, slowing things down, pause work and tempo work. But for the listeners out there, and for you as well, there's a huge difference between traversing and dipping. In fact, the traverse should not use triceps at all. Like, it shouldn't fatigue you at all by the time you get to the dip. And I think we were seeing a lot of people walking with a slight bend in the elbow, a slight kink, which turned it into a tricep exercise. So you were burning your triceps all the way down and then getting into the dips. So even if you're strong there, you're fucked by the end, because you have no strength in that position. For someone like Vellner, he was doing skeletal structure walk, meaning his elbow was locked out, so the tricep was not working. So by the time he got to the end, he was fresh. So it wasn't even are your dips strong? It's, did you burn out your triceps and your dips by the time you got to the portion where you needed to use them? That's the part that I think most people like, yeah, my dips are really good, but I just wasn't able to use them. It was because of everything else along the workout where you burned them out. So the traverse itself, when you come to camp, we have sets of parallel bars there. I really want to work on it with you a little bit, because I think it's some little tweaks that I think can go a long way in being able to kind of turn that into a strength. All right. So we're putting that on the agenda for you, Jeff. Parallel bar work, traverse work throughout the week. We got it. Now, the rest of the games, I was fascinated by this particular games. Boz moving into Castro's position, very different in terms of the programming. Now, I'm sure you guys recognize it as well. I've heard various opinions from athletes and coaches as to what they thought about it. Some athletes and coaches were saying too much variation, too many new things, a new thing here, handstand push-up variation here and there. But there were 10 to 12 new skills that had never been seen before over the course of the events over the weekend. As coach athlete, did you find that to be too many things, or did you find that to be what CrossFit is in terms of being prepared for anything?
That was way too many. I feel like Boz had something to prove.
Okay.
And it felt like that. That's how it felt. We didn't need all those new things. And there's some stuff like the double crossover.
Yeah.
I think it should have been a triple, just single, double, triple would have made sense. There's some little things like that, but there's also a lot of good stuff, like the rowing pace. That was cool. Like I really did not want to row 136 for that amount of time, but it forced everybody to go faster, and I think it was good for the show.
Caroline, what about you on the coaching side?
It's like a yes and no for me. I'd be curious if Castro had programmed that. Would people still have the same, oh, there was too many? So for me, the experience, like I don't remember the games the same way the athletes do. Like they go through all the events, I get them all jumbled, and I forget stuff. And I think that's an advantage that Michelle has over me, competing at the games and then being able to coach Vellner. She remembers all the games, and I'd be very curious to be like, was there as much of a difference year to year? Like how many new things did we see from 2011 to 12 or 2014 to 15 and so on and so forth? Because was it really that many? Like, and that's the other thing. We started he made it to the games 2019, the first year, all the national champions. The next year, 2020, we're on lockdown. Last year, 2020, like every year we've had to deal with a lot of change, which for me, let's say as a fan of the sport, going to the games since 2013 and things like that, it seemed a lot more consistent. You have 12 to 15 events or whatever. And I'm sure like for the athletes, it's not the same as for the fans. Like we're watching this, we're trying to be entertained, and them going through, it's like, now we have to do this, now we have to do that. So I think, yes, there was a lot of new things. Was it more or less than the previous year? For me, I'd have to like really sit down and kind of take things apart and really notice, because would we have noticed it as much had it been Castro?
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point. Mike, what did you think about all of the new stuff just on the spectator side of things? I mean, I'm bringing it up because there was not very much barbell work, and I'm curious from your perspective, especially heavy barbell. So I'm curious from your perspective as a weightlifting coach.
I've told everybody, I mean, I thought it was fun to watch. I liked the heavy sandbag. I even as a weightlifter, I'm always sad if there's not like an exciting weightlifting style, almost competition moment, because I think those have such iconic classic moments in the games when somebody, has to hit a really heavy snatch or clean and jerk under pressure. But at the same time, like it was cool for me to see the heavy jerks with the running, because I think most people don't appreciate how heavy a weight like that can feel when you're fatigued. As a weightlifter that was constantly influenced into CrossFit workouts when I was still competing. I mean, I have a memory of doing a rowing workout, and then you had to find a max clean afterwards. And at the time, my max clean was like 170 kilos, and I failed at 100 kilos because my feet wouldn't move. Like I just did like a high pull into my chest. So I liked like that challenge, and for me as a spectator and a former weightlifter, it was still fun to watch, and I enjoyed it. I do hope that next year we get maybe a couple more classic lifts in there if possible.
Well, that event that you brought up, the shuttle overhead, that was in your wheelhouse quite a bit. You won that event. Is that right, Jeff?
I won the jerk part
overhead.
of it.
Yeah. So what was the strategy there? Because I saw athletes slightly take a different strategy according to strengths and weaknesses, right? The people who know that the overhead was terrible just sprinted the hell out of that first portion and were like, whatever happens on the jerk. For you, who's obviously great overhead and good with barbell, and what was your strategy there? Were you trying to pace yourself on the run to maximize part B?
No, so I just went because I've been doing a lot of running in the past like year, and so I just wanted to go hard, but not too hard that the jerks would feel that horrible. And honestly, going back, I could run harder than that. I could still win the jerks and run harder. And then for me, the jerks, I was like, I'm just going to keep going until she says that it's a no rep, basically. Because if you would have it on your shoulders, let's say 1 second before the beep, you could get that rep. And I was like, I'm going to get every rep that I can. And like, it was basically single, like it felt like singles because of the blocks. Like we had to drop it. It wasn't go. So it wasn't really demanding on the cardio. It was just like one heavy drop. And then you had some rest. It was, for me, the jerks felt fine.
Yeah, I mean,
And
and
from a safety side, as a weightlifting coach, I'm happy they did it from blocks, because some of the sketchiest moments in competitions are re-racking, and re-racking itself is a skill. So I think it allowed for, yeah, especially like you, Jeff, to demonstrate your proficiency in heavy to shoulder overhead, but not have any unnecessary risk, lowering when you're trying to rep stuff out like that.
Well, I think we would have done less reps without doing singles like we did, because let's say knock out like 3, I'd be dying, take a rest, and then you have no more time left. So because 300 pounds is still like, it's pretty heavy jerk.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Now, you won that event, but I don't know if it was your favorite. Did you have an event where you're like, I would love a do-over on this one where you wish you had another chance at it?
That would be alpaca.
Oh, the alpaca. Okay. But the way that it was programmed with the legless rope climbs in it, or the way that you guys end up doing it?
No. So let's say we would do the games again. The alpaca is the workout I have the most regret about. Okay. I think I should have gone harder. But I mean, I felt how I felt that morning, and I don't think I could have done much better, but it's one that I would like to try again, maybe use a different strategy on the bells, see if I could go a little bit faster. We were talking about this on a podcast earlier in the week with regards to, that was another new movement standard that we didn't get to see because of the rain that day with the rope climbs. How would you have felt if you had to do from seated, L-sit, legs on one side of the rope, up, down? Is that something you've ever trained before? Would you have considered that a potential strength for you in that workout? Well, a strength, yes and no. I'm good at rope climbs, better than others, I guess. But yeah, I mean, seated from seated to seated it's a different game. Like you're doing it's 2 legless in one. But we've done those in the past at the gym, so I wasn't scared of those at all. I'm still happy they took them out because of the rain. Because yes, it would have been really unfair if you had like a wet one and someone would have a dry one, plus the safety issue. But I would rather do the workout with the rope climbs for the reason of the placing, but also like we had no space on the field because we were all at the same spot. Like we had to move stuff around on the field because there was no space for 3, and the rope would have given the chance to separate us a little bit more.
From a competitor side, Justin won again. We have somebody who's creating a little bit of a mini dynasty again post Matt. But we had some new faces as well, with Krennikov coming in and making a huge push. Are you viewing things as, with these new guys, new faces, as the men's side being really stacked now in terms of it being an open playing field? Or are you seeing a few guys that are kind of moving ahead now, that are establishing themselves as almost the next people that are going to be really, really challenging to beat?
I don't know. I'm not sure yet. Yes, Justin is right now in a very good position, but I think with Roman and Ricky now, it's going to change because I think the top guys are closer together than we think. I mean, no disrespect to Justin, he's not Matt. Matt had such an advantage. Like he was much better than everybody else, and I don't. Well, personally, I don't have that feeling with Justin. He's really good. He's really, really, like his finishes are consistent. Like it's a beautiful thing to see, but he's not as dominant as Matt was. And I think it is possible to beat him. I think it is possible to beat Roman and Ricky. It's just maybe the workouts, the setting, like it could be different things. But for like these 3 guys, and we knew when Roman was coming to the games that he would mess the cards up, and we always knew that Ricky was good, like whether he was on drugs or not. Like Ricky is good, he's a good competitor, but I think that, again, not like Matt, they are beatable.
Do you regret at all Matt retiring and saying, I would have loved to try to beat Matt in his prime still? Or is there a sense of relief saying, the guy's freaking unbeatable, I'm glad that the space opened up a little bit?
So I actually am sad that he did retire, because I think he would have won again. Not because I don't want to beat, I don't want to beat Matt. Yes, I want to beat Matt, but I knew it was not going to be me. He was way too good. I would have been curious, like, would he have won last year or this year again? Like, I'd be curious to see if he was. I think so. I think he was fit enough to keep winning for a few years, but
yeah,
he was just tired of competing, which is fine. Like, it's a respectable thing.
Amazing. So what's next on the agenda for you guys? Next competition? Obviously, we got camp in a few weeks, so we got that forefront of our minds. But from a competitive standpoint, game's over a month ago. What's next for you in terms of your ramp up period for your competitive season?
We're ramping up right now for Rogue, end of October.
Rogue Invitational.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. And then we're gonna ramp down after that. Take a little bit of time off before the season. And I don't think I'm gonna compete again this year before the Open. Maybe I'll have the opportunity, but not sure if I'm gonna say yes. I want to get
no plans for Wadapalooza.
No.
Well, now they just announced the change in the schedule. So it's elite Thursday, Friday, and elite teams, elite individual Thursday, Friday, and elite teams Saturday, Sunday.
Oh, really? So
I didn't see
the elite are not competing on the weekend?
So I think all the other categories are competing for 4 days, but the elite is just for the individuals 2 days, and then for the teams 2 days. And they're like, if you want to do both, I don't know who's going to want to, do individual and teams, unless you're really going there to party on a team.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wadapalooza is still like, it's close to the season. If you want to focus on the games, like off season becomes really important. I think where he is at in his career, it's going to serve a different purpose for different athletes along their journey. But for us this year, we want to focus on the off season. So we'll see if there's opportunities or if our opinion change or whatever. But the main goal right now is 2023 games, focusing on the off season, making sure we're as prepared as we can be.
Yeah. And I think probably too, you just prefer to be in Canada in the middle of the winter rather than Miami. I mean, I can see that the benefits are.
I don't mind the snow.
Well, Montreal is a pretty great place to be any time of year. So you guys are pretty lucky with where you're at. Before we get you out of here, some quick questions for you. All right. We're going to ask both of you. So quick hitting ones. First one, what sport or discipline do you prefer? Weightlifting or gymnastics? Caroline, you first.
Oh,
that sucks.
Weightlifting?
Oh, all right. Maybe I would get one.
So I keep telling Dave I want my buzzer where I can hit that buzzer because I'm so excited.
It's so close. Like I enjoy both. I really do. Really,
yeah,
really.
there's just something good and honest about weightlifting.
Get out of here, Mike. Enough. take the victory and move on. What about you, Jeff?
I'm sorry, but I'm weightlifting as well. But
Yes.
That's a double. Oh my goodness.
Oh man.
I had such a string lately. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm weightlifting minus the snatch.
All right.
Well, that's my station at camp, Jeff. So I want to see what's going on.
Yeah. Something is going on.
We normally have, it's either Mike or Chad or my co-host, normally two lifters. And I had such a good run going. Like I was well outpaced.
They've had like 2 years of all gymnastics.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, the last like 6 months, it's been all weightlifting. I don't know what's going on here. I think it's just the Jordan getting people on who he knows, he's asked them beforehand what they're going to say, and just kind of screwing me on my numbers here. But all right, fine, weightlifting it is. My 5-year-old daughter said weightlifting too, by the way. So there's that.
Alessia loves her Manny.
She does. Next question. Any guests that you think would be great for us to have on the podcast? Anyone you've maybe come across or someone that you think would be good for us to interview? This is always a tough question for people to think about, like right off the bat.
Did you get Oprah on? I'm just kidding.
Oh, all right. Yeah, we had somebody ask us that. How about Elon Musk? I was like, yeah, sure. Do you have his cell number? We'll call him tomorrow. So if there's someone that, you can pass along, we put it in the notes, but if there's someone that you do come across that might be a good fit for us to interview, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
We always get good guests from people's suggestions. Next on the list here, if you are book readers? Is there a book that you're reading now or that you've read recently that you'd recommend it? And if not, maybe a TV show or a movie?
So I've read one book in the last like 15 years. This is it.
Diddly squat.
Jeremy Clarkson, so the guys from Grand Tour and Top Gear. He's
yeah.
So that's one of the
three hosts.
Yeah.
Called Diddly Squat. Is it about squatting?
It's farming.
Farming. So during the pandemic, because they couldn't film and travel to do all the car stuff, he started a farm. It's on Prime.
Yeah.
It's on Prime. And then with the show and the farm, he did a book. So he's actually reading the book about the show that he's watched.
Yeah.
So Jeff, are you becoming a farmer now too?
No, not at all.
All right, Diddly Squat. I thought maybe it had to do something with the squat and Mike was going to get really excited about it, but doing Diddly Squat.
I mean, the farming part I'm cool with too, so I like it all.
Fantastic. Well, those are all the questions, guys. Thank you so much for both being with us today. We appreciate the time, and Jeff, getting to know you a little bit more, and Caroline, seeing you again after so many years. And we are incredibly excited to get you both out to Power Monkey Camp in a few weeks. It's going to be an amazing week. Work on all of those areas of need and touch on some new things for sure. Before we get you out of here, anywhere, where can people find you? Anything else you have going on that you want our listeners to know about?
Instagram.
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
That's basically it.
What are your handles?
Oh.
At Adler Jeff. He doesn't even know his handle. That's how much. He's Adler Jeff, and I'm at Lambray Living.
All right, fantastic, guys. We'll make sure everyone goes over and follows you and the adventures that come along with what you got guys coming up for the upcoming year. Mike, thank you again for coming in from your late night out in Crete. Appreciate the time as always. And for our listeners out there, thank you for the time. We appreciate you being with us. Please head over to powermonkeyfitness.com for more events and upcoming programming that we have through our new app that's going to be coming out very, very soon. We're excited about it. You can find it in the App Store now at Power Monkey Training on both Android and iOS. For our listeners as well, thank you for following. I am your host, Dave Durante, with my co-host, Mike Service. You can follow us on Instagram at Dave Durante and at Mike Service, as well as Power Monkey Fitness. And until next time, thank you all for listening.